Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today is part 2 of my conversation with Jim Salvucci. Today, we're going to talk about the second 2 C's of the 4 C's of leadership. Remember, we already talked about parts 1 and 2, or the first 2 C's, which is character and communication, which are 2 very important parts of effective leadership. And if you haven't listened to part 1, make sure that you do that before you listen to this episode. Today, we're going to talk about the next 2, which are compromise and collaboration. Plus, we talk about one critical component of character. I really appreciate you joining us for this second half of the conversation. And I appreciate you joining me all the time. I appreciate the fact that you join me week after week to get valuable content on your journey in the world of administration and effective leadership. I would really appreciate it if you would take just a moment to hop on over and give me a rating and a review. That way I know that you're listening, I know what you like, and it helps me grow the show. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Without further ado, let's jump into part 2 of my conversation with Jim. Hi, friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests, put your leadership in motion, and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion.
The third C is compromise. Compromise is a give or take, right? That's all it is. You know, it's meeting someone part way. The key is it's transactional. You both have to give and you both have to take. It could be 50-50. It could be 99 versus 1. Someone has to give, or both have to give, both have to take. And it can involve many people. You can't get to compromise without clear, solid communication. And you need character. You need to have trust. So compromise, like I said, is very transactional. It's back and forth. And in order to really make a compromise happen, though, you really need to understand the other person and they need to understand you. And that's where the communication comes in.
Mm-hmm.
The third C is collaboration. And collaboration is by far the most important. It's where you want to go as a leader. Leaders create collaborations. Even if it's a collaboration of 2 people. They get other, my favorite definition of leadership comes from Dwight Eisenhower. He said that leaders get other people to do what needs to be done because they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's a great way of thinking about collaboration, getting people to do things because they want to do it. You get there first by compromise. You have to give up something and you have to take something away from everyone. Everyone has to participate in that. But then to collaborate, you have to create a win-win situation. The opposite of collaboration is competition. And we often think of competition as being a healthy thing in the workplace because it drives people forward and you move up and up and up. That's pretty limited, right? You think of like 2 maybe baseball teams. They play each other. One's going to win, one's going to lose, right? That's a zero-sum game. And that's how competition ultimately comes out. It's a zero-sum game. Somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. And you can say, well, the 2 baseball teams are, you know, the losing team is driven to play harder the next time. Maybe, but that's pretty rare. Even among elite athletes, that's not always the case.
Right.
And in the day to day, that's most certainly not the case. In the workspace, that is most certainly not the case. Competition tends to bring people down. You want to create a situation as a leader where it's not zero-sum game, but win-win. Everyone working together for the same cause, for the same reasons, because they're driven by their character, right? They're able to communicate, they're able to compromise, and they want to work together on things because they want to all achieve the same goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And collaboration, I think, has been one of the driving forces in my success in education as a leader, but then also now as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
because you don't always have all of the answers and you only have one perspective. And I never even looked at the opposite of collaboration being competition. That is a new way of thinking for me. So I'm going to have to like really process that, definitely, because I've never even heard it framed up that way.
Yeah. And well, think about it this way. This podcast is a collaboration, right?
Mhm. Yes.
You could just be talking, right? Actually, I have a
Yes.
podcast where actually that's what I do. I just talk. I don't interview people. But this is a collaboration. You're working with other people. Imagine what this would look like if we were competing. How would
Yeah.
this sound, right? It would be ridiculous. It might be entertaining for some people, but it would
Right.
probably be more heat than light.
And I've seen things on TV, shows on TV, or listen to podcasts where they are in competition for each other to have their voice heard. And
Mhm.
it is not, well, it goes back to that clarity. There's no clarity then
Mhm.
because everybody's trying to get their point across. Nobody's being heard at that point. It is competition, which loses that clarity.
Exactly right.
All right. So keep going. Is there anything else with this? Yeah.
Well, in terms of, so as a leader, what you want to do is you want to start with character. You want to start building your character. Like I said, you need to be self-aware. There's a saying that leaders start by leading themselves. And what that means is you analyze yourself, you think about yourself, you think about your values. Your values are solid, but they will change, right? Circumstances will change, you'll change, and you need to assess them and you need to revise them as you go along. It's an assessment loop, right?
Exactly.
That's a normal thing. That's critical. Another piece of character is integrity. And integrity is really often misunderstood. And the way I describe it is, think of like a chair, right? You're sitting on a chair right now. You sat down on that chair. You didn't really question it, right? You just sat down. Why? Because that chair is solid. It's not a liquid chair. It's not a gaseous chair. You wouldn't have sat on it, right?
Right.
It has solidity to it. The chair also has wholeness, right? It has legs or wheels or something underneath that make it whole. It has all its bolts. If it didn't have all its bolts, it would fall apart, right? So it's whole. And then finally, it's dependable. You could trust it. You probably didn't walk over to the chair and touch it a little bit, make sure it didn't wobble or anything. You just sat down, right? You could trust it. It's the same thing with human integrity or moral integrity. Exactly the same elements.
Just like the boy who cried wolf.
Right.
He lost his integrity pretty much because he was no longer trustworthy. And I've seen people who I thought were great workers. And then as I really got to know them or really got to know their work, I'm like, you are kind of the wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing, because you don't have integrity. I see the things you do when you think nobody's looking, and it is not someone of good character.
That's
and we
key.
need to work on those. We need to work on those skills. Definitely.
Yeah. What you just said there was key. You saw what they were like when other people weren't looking. And that's wholeness. That's where moral integrity comes to wholeness. Solidity is obvious, right? But wholeness means that you are that same person with integrity, practice that same integrity in every aspect of your life. You don't go home and act one way and act and work another way. You're not loving to your family and a beast at work. That's not integrity. You're not, kissing up to your boss and kicking everyone else. That's not integrity.
Right.
If you're working on a budget or something like that, you can't like fudge the numbers there, but be totally honest everywhere else. That's not integrity.
Right.
So you need to have that wholeness and you need to be reliable. People need to be able to look at you and say, that's a person I trust. because you have that integrity. And so that is really undergirds the character. And once you have that, then you can build on to the others. You concentrate on communication. You really need to focus on clarity. You know, I always used to tell students, I taught composition for years. I told students, if you ever think, oh, he'll understand what I mean, you are exactly wrong. Okay, you just made a choice there to not be clear. Clarity trumps everything. It's the most important aspect of communication.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot the last few months, you know, the texting thing. Even when you think your message is clear and you're sending it to someone, even your family or your friends, text is the worst aggravator of relationships, let me tell you, because you think you're portraying your words in one way and it's received in a different way. So you need to think about that when you're thinking about the clarity of your message and how you're sending it, when you're sending through email or text, or when you're face to face. Even body language. Is your message clear because your body language is different?
Right.
So think about all of those things. And that's a skill that I was talking about recently on another podcast. That's a skill you can grow, your communication skills. Definitely. And even when I will think I've got a really solid email crafted and I'll run it through Chat GPT or Ruby AI, or even I have the other thing, I can't even think of what it's called, that like checks your work as you're going along and tells you when there are mistakes in your spelling and clarity and that kind of stuff. Like it will often pull things out that I didn't even realize. And it'll like underline like a whole sentence. And I'm like, good grief, what's wrong with this sentence? And then it'll give me a suggestion on how to make it more clear. And so I'm telling you, AI is good for some of that stuff because it helps you get that message across more clear. Definitely, especially when I'm doing promotion for either the podcast or my book, which I've just finished, and my group course, which I'm getting ready to start. I am always, because your brain thinks faster than you can type or write sometimes. And then sometimes that clarity is lost because of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And we always want to kind of cut corners. We want to get to the next idea, or we lose our train of thought. And that's where revision comes in. Hate to say that, kids, got to go back and proofread.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I read my stuff 3 or 4 or 5 times before I send it out now, because I've gotten slammed before, because I'll send something out and then I'm like, I'll realize that, you know, especially when AI crafts something for you, it'll leave space for you to put your own stuff in. And there's been a time or two where I have grabbed my stuff from Ruby or Chat GPT and I've crafted an email and sent it, and then realized, oh my gosh, I totally forgot to change the little placeholder field and put my own stuff in there. And now I look very unprofessional and I sound like an idiot. So proofreading is a good thing, definitely. Or even on sending texts, because I use the voice to text a lot. And sometimes I'll just hit send and not read it. And for some reason, Siri hates me here lately, and she will change everything, or she'll leave out entire words, or she'll double up on words. And so it's always good to proofread for sure.
Siri has an overactive imagination.
Yeah, she got some problems here lately. I don't know what's going on with her. So it's been great having you on the show. Give us one last tip for our listeners, leaders who are moving into a leadership position or ready to pivot in their career to move into that leadership position, or they're early on in their leadership, or even in my case, you've started your own educational consultancy or company and you are now the leader of your entire company. Give us some words of wisdom.
Yeah, I'm going to actually reiterate what I said before because it is so key. It starts with the self.
Yes.
If you're not starting there, you're not starting at all. It's the only way to do it. A lot of leaders start without really thinking about themselves and who they are and what they stand for. And down the line, they get themselves in a whole lot of trouble. And that's why there's so many bad bosses out there.
Yes. Yes. And once you figure out who you are and what you stand for, and you've done some self-reflection and you realize, yes, I'm a person of integrity and of good moral character, then don't bend.
Right. Exactly.
Don't let that change by who you're around. Don't let
Right.
your people that you are working with change that in you.
Absolutely.
This has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot. Your 4 C's are great. And again, those are character, communication, compromise, and collaboration, in case somebody missed them. Jim, tell us how we can connect with you if we would like to follow you on social media or email you or however you want us to connect.
Right. Well, the easiest thing to do is to go to my website, which is www.guidanceforgreatness.com. That's all one word, Guidance for Greatness. It's also a good idea to check out my blog and podcast. Every week I write an essay about leadership based on my experiences and my observations. It's on Substack at jimsalvucci.substack.com. You can also find a link to it on my website. And I also record that every week. A lot of people like to listen to it. And you can find that pretty much on any podcast platform. And that the name of it is On Leading with Greatness.
Okay.
And then so on Leading with Greatness, if you want to find it on the podcast server, and it is jimsalvucci.substack.com on Substack. Also, I have a free resource that I offer to people that it's called the Transform to Greatness Toolkit, and you can find it at www.thegreatleadershiptoolkit.com.
And did you send me the link to that? I can drop that in the show notes if you did.
I don't remember. I will send it to you.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that after the show, but I will get that in the show notes for you guys. For the rest of you, thank you for joining us here today. It's been a great conversation, and I hope you found some value in it. And I will see you back here same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.